Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Hank Boyer, with my co-host, Christine Miles, Equipped People, Drew Hanlon, Hanlon Creative, Mark Peltier, Meridian Bank, and Frank Hennessy, Premier Planning. We've got a terrific lineup of guests for you here today on our show. Christine, would you please give us a rundown of who's with us today?
Sure, Hank. We have Carole, Borden, CEO of CB Transportation, Chet, Riddick, CEO of Alpha Professional Solutions. We have Amy Kothari, President and CEO of Mari Alarm Center, and Ken Baker, CEO of New Age Industries.
Thanks, Christine. Carole Borden, CEO of CB Transportation, is our first guest. I'm pleased to introduce her. Good morning, Carole, and tell me, what is CB Transportation?
Good morning, Hank. CB Transportation and CB Freight Solutions provide transportation, logistics, and technology solutions to our customers to help support their supply chains.
And how large or how small is the organization?
The company will be at about 20 to 22 million this year with 13 employees.
And you're doing that virtually, I understand.
We are, but we have been running virtually for 15 years. So this has been a continuation of what we've always known and done.
Fantastic. How did you get started there?
I was working for another transportation company and was asked to incorporate. So it kind of evolved organically, and we relicensed the company in 2009 to set it up, and no longer was a consulting company, but now as a full-blown logistics company, the format we're in now.
Terrific. Now let's take us back to your childhood. Where were you born and raised?
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
And whereabouts in Philadelphia?
Oh, I'm sorry. We grew up outside of Philadelphia in Chestnut Hill, Montgomery County, actually.
Brothers or sisters?
I have two half brothers and a half sister. Both, all of them were about 10 plus years older than I was. So in essence, I grew up as an only child.
So what impact did that have on you growing up as an only child, knowing you had a couple of sisters and brother?
Well, I wasn't actually aware of my siblings till probably in my 10, 11, 12 years old. So I really didn't know any different for many years. And once I discovered I had them, we met, and it was wonderful. We, instantly bonded. We're still incredibly close, although there's many miles between us. But in terms of growing up as an only child, I didn't really know any different. So it was great. I was close with my parents. They were parents, and they became friends. And it was a great experience. Allowed me to have very close friendships with the kids in the neighborhood. So I felt like I had a really wonderful childhood.
Carole, take us back. What was the backstory that you had siblings that were so different in age and geographically located that you grew up as an only child?
Previous marriages. My father was married, and he had my brother Rob and sister Sandy, who were on the West Coast. My mother was also previously married. My brother Paul was in Philadelphia, although I didn't see. I saw a little bit more of him because he was in the same city, but not much. And then years later, they had me. So,
yeah, Carole, you mentioned your father was quite an inspiration to you when you were younger. Can you tell us a little about him and what he was into?
Yes, my father was a physician. He had his own practice. He was also a chief of staff down at Einstein. He was a great person, a caring person, obviously being a doctor. And, he was a very, very strong influence in my life. My mother was a homemaker. When my father passed away back in 1977, my mother went back to work shortly thereafter. So she was also very, very inspirational and, understood what was necessary to help take care of me, and rose from getting back into the workforce to retiring as a vice president at Merrill Lynch.
Wow. And you also mentioned that some of your close friends at a young age are still your friends today. And I'm just curious, what does that say about you?
Well, I mean, I hope that it says that I'm genuine and loyal. Friendships were important to me. Perhaps they were, my version of my sisters by choice, my brothers by choice. I was very, very fortunate that I was able to have such good friends. We stayed friends because maybe we had common things that were important to us. And over time, I feel that I've been very, very fortunate to be able to not only have close friends, but really develop very, very close bonds within my company and within the team.
Frank?
So, Carole, staying with friends, what was your role with them? How did you see yourself and how did they see you interacting with your friends?
I think, we were kids. We did a lot of the neighborhood fun kids stuff. And it's funny, I didn't think that there was anything necessarily remarkable about it. We all, we played together. We would go to the supermarket and we would carry bags to make some extra money, and we'd go horseback riding, and we would just do, childhood stuff like that. We babysat. We were just kind of a close-knit neighborhood group. It was nice. Okay.
And so you say those relationships were very meaningful and important, and yet you were able to build some of those long distance without physical contact, sometimes West Coast to East Coast. How were you able to effectively do that?
So that was actually, Frank, with my siblings. So that just meeting them at a later age and realizing, we were blood. We had parents in common. So it was this great, revelation, and to meet them at that age and to want to make up for lost time. We still try to get together, many, many years later, once a year. But I think it really allowed us to cut through some of the superficial things that go on and really build, connected emotional bonds with each other. And again, they were siblings, but I think I was able to take that ability and at least I think I do, and do that with the team and with our clients. And
so
go on.
So you're able to connect and translate that long distance relationship building to your business at CB Transportation.
Yes, and so what we find at CB is that even though that there's miles between us, again, we've always run virtually. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's my sister in California or if it's a client that happens to be in Trenton, New Jersey, right? There's still that phone bond, that bond through emails and some other, now we have Zoom and some other ways to actually see and be closer. But I think that I learned at a young age that it can be done effectively, and it can be done in a very meaningful way.
Mark?
Tell me some of your role models growing up in school and outside of the home.
Well, I would say that my biggest role models were my parents. Certainly my father had such an influence on me, and losing him at a young age was, impactful to this day. My mother being a strong and resilient woman who at 92 lives with me now. So I think I've learned a lot about what's important in life and family and extended family, right? Family by choice. My teachers were influential on me. I was always wanted to make people proud of me and be a pleaser. And I think that carries on through how I behave now. And
Carole, you strike me as very humble. Last question: where does that come from? Was your dad humble, your mom? But there's something about you that you make everything sound like it's just ordinary stuff. But there's a lot more going on.
Thank you for saying that. I was swore to myself I wouldn't get too emotional during this, but I thank you because I feel like maybe you hit a chord there. I think I'm a pretty normal person. I think that
Is that your mom
I just
or your
try
dad?
to be the best I can be.
Where does that come from, mom or dad?
Well, I guess maybe it comes from both of them, honestly, Christine. I mean, my father was a doctor, so by nature, he was caring, and it didn't matter who he was helping. It didn't matter, race, color, nothing mattered to him. He was just a caregiver. He was, that's...
Carole, what's the website?
cbtransportation.com.
And we've been speaking with Carole Borden, who is CEO of cbtransportation.com. Don't forget to visit executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be right back after this brief break. And your name and organization is?
My name is Dr. Brandie Nemchenko. I'm the CEO of Experience Chiropractic, Wayne and Conshohocken.
And what does Experience Chiropractic do?
Experience Chiropractic is a practice on the main line that services a lot of pregnant women. 80% of our practice is pregnant, but we really are one of the premier practices in the area. And
you were born and raised in Downingtown, oldest of four. What impact did being the oldest of four have on you?
A sense of humor. To be put in charge at that age was a lot, but it really taught me strategy and keeping the natives.
Your mom is a nurse by trade. Was that how you got interested in wellness and people care? Yeah, my mom is one of the most amazing caretakers, but she's also brilliant in business. And she started an adult daycare center with a child care center at the Malvern Corporate Center. And your website is? ExperienceChiropracticNow.com. And that's been your business spotlight. We're back, and you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Hank Boyer. We'd like to introduce you to our next guest, Chet Riddick, who is CEO of Alpha Professional Solutions. Morning, Chet. What is Alpha Professional Solutions? What do you guys do?
Alpha Professional Solutions is exactly what the name is, Alpha Professional Solutions. We provide solutions to corporations in their office products, their commercial furniture, their print services, as well as we provide a distributorship for lighting and controls.
And how big or how small is the organization, Chet?
Well, the organization is roughly about 19 employees now, down from 66 employees in our organization from the last 5 years, but technology has led us to reducing the size of our footprint.
And how did you get started at Alpha Professional Solutions?
Well, Alpha Professional Solutions has been in the business for 35 years. I came into and acquired into the business in 2010.
And let's take you back to your childhood. Where were you born and raised?
Hey, great question. Born and raised in Philadelphia. West Philadelphia is the area where I grew up at, and went to high school at Overbrook High.
And there was somebody pretty famous that went to high school at Overbrook High.
You better
Who was that?
That was Wilt Chamberlain.
Yes, indeedy. So in growing up in West Philadelphia, you had an older sister, Carole, who was 6 years older than you. What impact did that have on you growing up in West Philadelphia with an older sister 6 years older?
It had a tremendous impact on me. Carolyn was a leader and a kind of a person that always looked out for folks in the community. She started a Cub Scout. She put me in a Cub Scout. Anything that I could get involved in that she could be almost like the den mother, she was. She was that kind of person that always got us involved, kept me involved, and kept herself involved. That's very much a forward thinker.
When you're at work day to day, what do you hear Carole whispering in your ear?
Do the best job that you can, always.
Great. What did your mom and dad do?
Hey, my mom was, she was actually a home keeper for us up until myself at 7 years old. And my father was an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. What kind of jobs did he have as an entrepreneur?
Well, in the early 50s, starting in 1950, he ran a beer distributor business. He was the first African-American in the state of Pennsylvania to have a beer distributor license. And in 1960, he opened up what is called Chet's Variety, which was a kind of delicatessen and grocery store.
And that was your first job, right?
Absolutely was my first job. It was one where I started at 11 years old, And it was where I began my experience as I would just say, as a leader, as a business leader.
What did your father teach you in the family business that you use today?
My father taught me a number of different things that I use today. Number one, from accounting perspective and keeping the books. I had to learn those kinds of things. He taught me how to deal with people and manage people because we had employees. So we had to manage our employees with skill and context. You had to understand that if they had families, if they had to come in late, there are reasons why people sometimes come in late. So he taught us the ability to understand people's emotions and what was going on in their lives, so it would be important in his business.
Chet, what was it like at 11 going to work? How'd you feel? Tapping into emotions here. How did you feel about going to work?
You really tapped into my emotions because I'll tell you one thing, I hated going to work at 11 years old. One of the reasons why is because I had to leave my friends. I had to leave those friends where, we used to just hang out, do various different kinds of things as young people do, but I had to go to work. So it was not pleasant at that time, but over time I actually learned.
So a lot was expected of you as a kid.
Oh, tremendous things were expected of me as a kid. That my job was just as important as the other employees that he had. And my father was one to kind of teach me all of the ropes in the business and all of the things that he had to do.
So wait. You said your job was as important as his. So you're the CEO, right? So how does that play out in the work that you do at your company? How is everybody else's role as important as yours?
Well, first place, in business, and I think every entrepreneur should understand this, is that it's the people who run your business. It is the people that actually make your customers feel comfortable. It's the people in your business that, make it worthwhile for them to come back, your customers to come back to you. So you have to let your customers know, let your people know, let your employees know that they have to radiate to their customers that they talk to. They have to answer the phone as if they have joy in their voice when they answer the phone.
So at 11, even if you were feeling joy, you were expressing joy, right?
Absolutely.
Chet, your dad expected a lot of you, but you also mentioned that he was a major inspiration to you. Can you tell us about that and how he inspired you?
He inspired me in a number of different ways, being a community leader, being a ward leader in our community too as well. He inspired me in terms of making sure that people understood the importance of each other in the community. So he always brought a lot of people together. They addressed him as Mr. Riddick, and no one in our community addressed him other than Mr. Riddick.
What did that tell you about him?
Well, it told me that he had a lot of stature. I said, wow, a lot of my people believe in him. Boy, my dad is something else. Everybody respects him. Everybody called him Mr. Riddick. I'm saying, wow, they call him Mr. Riddick. Everybody else's dad, they called by their first name, but they call my father Mr. Riddick.
And what do you bring to work every day from your dad? Like, what's the one thing that really drives you every day?
What brings me to work every day, just kind of from the reminiscence of my dad, is it's always about doing the best that you can. The business of business is business. And that's one of the things that he used to always say. The business of business is business. And so you have to take care of business every day.
One of the things you also mentioned about your parents is that your sister went to Penn State when you were 12. Do I have that right? And that they said girls need to be educated.
Absolutely. In my family, in my household that we grew up in, it was the belief of my mother and my father that girls had to be educated. Absolutely. So they said that my sister was a driver, and she did extremely well in school, and she had went to girls high, and then had transferred and graduated from Overbrook, and she got the right kind of grades to be able to put her into Penn State. And as a young kid, I was able to go to a College Park when my parents would go visit her, and I would see her. I would see what she was involved in, and she was kind of a role model in that aspect.
So, Chet, when you were young, you were busy with various responsibilities in the family business, but you were still trying to figure yourself out. But then your dad became ill, and your responsibilities changed. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. See, when my dad became ill, one of the things that he had taught me in the business is that we had a business that operated 6 days a week. At one point in time, it was 7. We cut off Sunday. We started off on a Monday. I had to go to the wholesale house. I had to go out and purchase things from the wholesale house that would go into the business. By Wednesday or Thursday, we had to prepare the food. We had to start cutting up onions and tomatoes and ordering the rolls and all those kinds of things. So it slammed me right quickly into the business of managing all of the things that needed to get done. Just for the climax of our business would be Friday and Saturday night, where we would sell anywhere between 600 to 800 sandwiches. And
so you stayed in the business from this point going forward. How did that increase support and responsibility reflect in how you run the business today?
Well, running a business is really about controlling what you're doing. Part of what I learned from my dad was keeping the books. You've got to understand your financial position in business. If you don't understand your financial position in business, then the bank won't understand your financial business in business. And so what he taught us as between the 8 and 14 years of age of what I really learned was how to keep account of what you're doing in business, keep an account of how much product that you use, understanding the amount of product that you use based from
what is your website, Chet?
Only-alpha.com.
We've been speaking with Chet Riddick, who's CEO of Alpha Product Solutions, here on Executive Leaders Radio with my co-host Christine Miles, Equip People, Drew Hanlon, Hanlon Creative, Mark Peltier, Meridian Bank, and Frank Hennessy, Premier Planning. Don't forget to visit executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be right back. We're back, and you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Hank Boyer. We'd like to introduce Amy Kothari, who's President and CEO of My Alarm Center. Amy, what is My Alarm Center? What do you folks do there?
Hi, Hank. As a President and CEO of My Alarm Center, we're the 7th largest residential home security, home protection company in the country.
Outstanding. And how did you get started there?
Somewhat by accident, but I was a banker and covered the media telecom industry, and security fell into that. I took a deal. I became an expert in the space by accident and helped out some folks and joined them at this company 18 years ago.
Wow. So you were born in Jersey City, raised in Montclair. Tell us a little bit about that experience living in Montclair.
Growing up in Montclair, which is a suburb of New York, but yet it's got an urban kind of twist to it. So a very large high school, a big downtown. We hung out a lot, on the street corners and in town. So definitely a mix of suburban, urban environment.
And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 4. I'm the oldest of 5. The 5 of us were born in 6 years. And I have 1 brother and 3 sisters.
Wow. So you had a little bit of a challenge with a lot of younger siblings. How did that impact you growing up? What was your role?
Significantly. I was actually pulled out of nursery school to stay home and help my mother. After 2 weeks in nursery school, she said she needed me at home. So I was raised to really raise the other children and be there for them and take care of them and be responsible. So I think caring for siblings definitely was a formative part of my growing up. And then also feeling like, I was starting to approach decision-making times, at between 8 and 14 years old. And my parents weren't always really available. So a lot of decision-making on my own, that's how I felt at that time.
Who taught you to do that?
I think it was a little bit of survival, but then also my father was raised in a very independent way as well and took care of himself. So I formulated a lot of my decisions based on how I knew he had grown up. He figured it out on the go.
So you had that independence at a young age and not relying on others. You shared with us in the green room something you said about telling mom something. What was that?
It was in the family, everyone. I became more of the mother role. My mother was the lover, the nurturer, always happy, and not as strict as I felt she needed to be in raising this many children. So often the kids would say, well, you could tell mom, but don't tell Amy because we'll get in trouble.
So what does that have to do with being an effective CEO and president at My Alarm Center?
I think that it's a lot of, no nonsense. Put your head down, work hard, get things done, which, has stood in the way sometimes as well, because I've really had to learn over the years something my mother brought to the table, which was more of that compassion and empathy and listening, where I was just about problem solving. Go on.
Drew?
Amy, you mentioned that your dad kind of taught you that risk taking was okay. How did he articulate that to you?
Through stories. He took a lot of risks. He was very independent and on his own. There's some wonderful stories there by themselves. But what was interesting was he took a lot of risks, but he didn't push the girls in the house to take risks. We were expected. He was very traditional. He pushed us to get married and have children and take care of them. And that really challenged me because I think I had a little bit more of his DNA in me. And that forced me to want to go out and not do that.
Your dad was a lawyer, correct?
He was a lawyer, a criminal defense attorney.
And you saw him defending those in need, correct?
I did. He didn't talk a lot about, the good that he was doing for people, but he did. He took care of people. He defended those who often weren't defendable. And, that had a big impact on us.
How did that make you feel, seeing your dad do that for those in need?
Proud. So proud of him. And he's incredibly articulate and well-spoken and very rational and practical. And you didn't see his compassion, but his compassion came out in, what he did for other people.
And does that carry forward today in your leadership style?
Absolutely does. Yeah. No, I think back often to him, what's the problem at hand? Let's figure it out and solve it. And that pressure of trying to help others, who you feel like, might not be able to figure it out on their own.
He brought those stories to life for you. You told us a story in the green room where he actually took you to someone's home after celebrating a win of getting someone off of charges, right?
Yeah, it was tremendous to see that you can make a difference in people's lives who really otherwise don't have options. And the mother of this teenage boy who was wrongfully accused in something was, significant for me.
Mark?
You described a childhood in Mount Clair of changing schools several times. Tell me a little bit about your school experience.
Yeah, even though I lived in one town pretty much, I felt like I jumped around schools, went to public school as a kid. My parents got the idea of putting us in Catholic school. And then I ended up going to a private high school for my first 2 years, often feeling like I wasn't fitting in. I challenged the Catholic school was challenging for me. The private school, I struggled with sort of the elitism and feeling like I was the only one that was working and looking to raise money, make money and be independent. When I finally got to the public high school in my junior year, where everyone out in there was working hard and trying to build futures, I seemed to fit in there a lot better. But along the way, I made a lot of changes, so that was difficult.
And how does that help you today as CEO of My Alarm Center?
I think, I really have become, I'm very decision oriented, problem solving oriented, but yet I really, cherish the friendships I made in those last 2 years of high school. And so being able to, have those couple of peers that you have similar backgrounds and similar paths really had an influence on, how I make friends and how I run the business today.
Frank?
So, Amy, you mentioned your father quite a bit, but how about your mom? What difference has she made on you?
Just the compassion and, the listening side. I mean, she just was such a great listener. And, being able to show that love and compassion for my children. I have 3 children, now 3 adult children. And I'm seeing more and more that, my father's influence comes out much more in my work and in my independence and my life. But my mother's influence is coming out more and more in, the family and raising my children. And learning, I think, a little bit later in life than I otherwise would have. I'm finally realizing, the significance of all of that.
So you're a protector as a mom of 3, and you're a protector as a CEO of homes, businesses, and families. How are those roles similar, being a mom and being a CEO?
They're very similar. You know, I often say my easiest job are raising my children. You know, not running the company. The company is the challenging one. But it's about being flexible and realizing that you can't always do 100%.
Amy, you described that you're a lot like your dad, but he had these kind of traditional roles for women. You know, the fact that you were taken out of nursery school to be a mom and so forth. But so you've been breaking rules for a while for women, right? You've been doing things that most women haven't been doing, living in a man's world, banking, security. How do you mentor and help women in business today?
You know, and you're absolutely right. My father's guidance was, I felt like he contradicted himself quite often in that, you know, he was guiding us to be much more traditional, but yet he had a different path. And right away that sparked something and made that, you know, what's the difference between men and women? If you could do that, I can do that. And that really pushed me going forward, and being able to have that independence. That's my main driver. And so the advice I give to so many young women, especially women who are having children and trying to make that decision of working or staying home, I advise so many of them of, you know, when they're young, work, build your career, because frankly, it's between, you know, 13 and 23 that they actually really need you. And I just feel incredibly fortunate that I built my career and I now have the flexibility to be there with my children whenever I want.
How young were you when you started working, Amy?
12.
What were you doing?
Any babysitting job I could find, dog sitting, you know, helping people in their house. And then by 14, I lied about my age and got a waitressing job. And then I waitressed.
Why? The money? Why did you do it?
Money's independence.
Money is independence. Give us your website, would you please?
myalarmcenter.com.
One more time?
myalarmcenter.com.
Thank you, Amy. Well, we've been speaking with Amy Kothari, President and CEO of My Alarm Center here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be right back after this break.
Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure.
We're back, and you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Hank Boyer, with my co-host, Christine Miles of Equipped People, Drew Hanlon, Hanlon Creative, Mark Peltier, Meridian Bank, and Frank Hennessy, Premier Planning. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Ken Baker, CEO of New Age Industries. Hi, Ken, and what is CEO of New Age Industries? What do you guys do out there?
Yeah, we're a manufacturer of plastic tubing and hose and rubber tubing and hose fittings, systems, and RFID tagging solution.
How large or how small is the organization?
We are currently 200 people employed. We'll do probably over $100 million this year. We're growing very quickly, and we're an employee-owned company, an ESOP.
And how did you get started there?
Well, my first job was age 6, collating literature around the dining room table and cutting up little pieces of tubing and sticking them in envelopes.
So it was your father that founded the business?
Yes.
So you were sitting there at the dining room table. So tell us a little bit about Dad. What do you remember from growing up with him?
Well, Dad was very dedicated to the business. And he really spent 16, 18 hours building the business year after year. and really wasn't a father figure in the house. Yes, he was there, but he was a worker bee, and he worked very hard. And
so you were closer to mom then.
Yes, yes.
And so her role in the business was what?
She was the advertising manager, and she worked out of the home.
So you saw her plenty of times during the day, and your first job was working for her at age 6. What was that like, working for your mom at age 6? You should be out playing in the yard.
That's true, but it didn't take up all the time, and they paid me. I always had money in my pocket, and they really viewed that if you're going to work, you get paid, and they paid fairly. And I missed out, but I wasn't working all the time. It wasn't slave labor.
What do you take to work every day at New Age Industries from mom? What do you hear her whispering in your ear?
Well, she was a marketing person, and I'm a heavily marketing person as well. And so I come up with ideas all the time with how to move the organization forward from a sales and marketing standpoint.
And I'm curious, your dad was a hard worker, but what did you learn from your dad when you were a youngster?
My father, he grew up in the Depression. He sold toilet paper door to door during the Depression. He always wanted to have a product that everybody needed. And so money was an issue. So one of his favorite sayings was, if you want to expand, it's okay if you got the money to do it.
And what did that mean to you? What did that saying mean to you?
That means that you don't go into debt. You save your money, you have cash, and you buy as you go. Doing a lot of debt is not a good idea.
And how about mom? Like when you guys had dinner together, what did you guys chat about at the dinner table?
Well, my mom was, she liked to teach us large multi-syllable words during dinner. And it was a very interesting thing, and talking about the origin of the word and the definition of the word. We had to pronounce it and all that. Being dyslexic, that was a little.
Why was that important to her, Ken?
Well, she did not go to college, and she did very well by herself. But I think that she really wanted a college education, and she may have thought less than of herself, that she didn't have one. And she wanted her kids to be more educated, which is kind of cool.
So, Ken, you said growing up, family and business culture was essentially interwoven. What did you mean by that?
Well, the line between the family and the business was very blurred. All the kids worked for the company at one time or other. I was fortunate enough to come back in 1985. Into the company and then be CEO. But I felt that people are the backbone of the company, and you have to be connected with people.
And so as an employee-owned company today, how does family culture relate to the business?
Oh, it's so important. I view that my team is a terrific team, and I wanted to give ownership to them. And I felt that when you give ownership, then you get a higher performance organization. And ownership really then drives the organization. You teach how everybody can make money for the company, and then they drive forward.
Is that important to the employees, owners as well?
I think so. It changes the whole idea of work. There's a difference between an employee and an owner. And an employee, they punch the clock and they walk away from the business. An employee, they're thinking about it a little bit deeper, and maybe even when they're not working, they're coming up with ideas on how to make the organization more effective and more productive.
Do you think the fact that your parents, your dad and your mom, paid you when you were 6 and treated you as a valued member that deserved to be paid has anything to do with the fact that you have an employee-owned company?
Yeah, I think so. But my father thought I had rocks in my head to do employee ownership because he was a control guy. Why do you want to sell off the company? But I felt that 1 and 1 equals 3. You give ownership and the company will grow because they will make it more profitable. They will make it more efficient. And that has absolutely happened.
Well, just threading that a little bit, Ken, you had shared in the green room that your dad, as you just said here, was working 16 hours a day, and he was not really a father figure, so you felt somewhat disconnected from him. So employee connection is really important to you. That's one of the things you took away. What are the things you do to stay connected to your employees? You mentioned some very important things.
Yeah, I do MBWA, managing by wandering around every day, saying good morning, happy birthday, how about those Eagles, sorry they lost,
What about these handwritten cards and notes you do?
I every anniversary, every team member's anniversary, I write a handwritten card to them talking about something that they did or the importance of the employee ownership. And I think that's a connection. I want to have a connection with team members, and all team members, I meet with them for 15, 20 minutes when they come into the building. And then I also teach the ESOP class to them as well, 5 one-hour sessions.
You mentioned earlier that you're dyslexic and that one of the things that's important is really being tactile and feeling things. So it sounds like you want to make sure your employees feel a certain way when they come to work, that they feel ownership, that they feel appreciated, that they feel understood.
Yeah, everybody spends so much time at work. You probably spend more time at work than you do with your family. Maybe the only other thing is sleeping. But so how can we as leaders make work different, make work more fruitful, more giving to themselves, more intellectual for themselves, and also creating wealth?
One other thing you mentioned in the green room is the youngest of 4, you were left on your own a lot, right? You were doing things on your own. Nobody told you what to do. So what's that got to do also with how you're making sure that people feel seen and appreciated at work?
Well, I'm not sure if it connects with that. I think it connects with entrepreneurship and me being an entrepreneur and developing out the company and different services. And
What do you mean? What do you mean? How does being the youngest of 4 left on your own what's that got to do with?
Well, not the youngest, but being very independent. I was very independent, and having a mother and father that worked a lot in the business, and also having other siblings that they were off doing themselves. I had to fend for myself. And so I think that made me very independent as an individual, and I think that helps with entrepreneurship.
So this is an interesting mix of family and business.
Ken, take me back to your youth. What sport did you really enjoy?
Well, tennis. I play a lot of tennis. I ski. I bike. I work out. And I played basketball for a little bit until I got thrown off the basketball team.
And Ken, you shared a story where you broke a leg, but then still came on to cheer your tennis team. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was at the end of the ski season, and I was skiing, and I zigged, and I should have zagged and broke my leg. And tennis season was starting, and I was the captain of the tennis team. And so I felt I had to go out there. And so my father retrofitted my cast to have a polyurethane disc on the bottom so I could go out there and cheer the team on and maybe hit the ball a little bit. I didn't play, but coached a little bit and cheerlead.
So Ken, it's all about showing up. What is your website?
NewAgeIndustries.com.
One more time?
NewAgeIndustries.com.
And we've been speaking with Ken Baker, who is CEO of New Age Industries here on Executive Leaders Radio. Christine, can you give us a quick rundown of who's been on our show today?
Yes, Hank. We had Carole Borden, CEO of CB Transportation, Chet Riddick, CEO of Alpha Professional Solutions, Amy Kothari, President and CEO of My Alarm Center, and Ken Baker, CEO of New Age Industries.
I'd like to thank all of my co-hosts, Christine Miles, Equip People, Drew Hanlon, Hanlon Creative, Mark Peltier of Meridian Bank, and Frank Hennessy of Premier Planning for giving me a hand to structure the questions and give our listening audience an entertaining and educational show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening, otherwise we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.